Hey, and welcome to my top 10 most anticipated games for Essen Spiel 2014. Hey, I'm Chris, thanks for tuning in. So for those of you who don't know, Essen Spiel is either the biggest board game convention in the world or the second biggest board game convention in the world after Gen Con, depending on what metrics you go with, either the turnstile metrics or the like overall different people attendance. Anyways, so it's huge, it's ridiculous. There are tons and tons and tons of new games released at Essen every year. The count on BGG Con, as I see it right now, is 517 new releases coming out based on their geek list for the upcoming Essen releases. And I went through all of those and I scoured them and I read about all of them and I chose my top 10 most anticipated games. I excluded games that have already been released in the States, so stuff that came out at Gen Con and things like that won't be on this list. I didn't include expansions or reprints on this list because there's plenty of new stuff, brand new games coming out. And I haven't played any of these games on the list, so it's either based off the strength of the designer or an interesting concept or artwork or something. Something that caught my eye about this game aside from I've played it and it's good. So, that being said, let's get right into it. My number 10 most anticipated game is The Ravens of 3 Sahasri. This is a two-player co-op game. It seems like it has some similarities with Hanabi. You're trying to communicate with the other player only by your choice of cards. So which cards you pick to play, they have to deduce what you're trying to tell them and what card they should play. It's got a really cool theme. It's basically one player plays as a girl who's lost her memory, and the other player is a detective who's trying to help her regain it. So that seems pretty interesting. I like Hanabi a lot. It just seems like an interesting, different game that would probably hit the table quite often in my group. So. Number 9 is Haruichiban. This is designed by Bruno Cathala, who has an insane amount of games coming out this year. I think certainly 4, maybe 5 different games. Big hits too, Abyss, 5 Tribes, all that stuff. So he's been crazy busy. This game is another two-player game, and it's a pattern building game. The main thing that's drawing me to this game is the components are gorgeous. Looking at it on the board, basically you're trying to make, I think, flower petals go between lily pads, like blow between lily pads and things like that. It's just an absolutely gorgeous game that I could definitely see getting new players into just because it's so, so beautiful. Number 8 is Colt Express. This is an action programming game for 2 to 6 players. Basically, you're train robbers and things of that nature. The really cool thing about this game is the board is actually like a 3D train, so you can put your character like on top of the train or inside the train and things like that. And you're just programming actions with cards, and everybody has different ones. So you can say, I steal the jewels, or I move forward a car, or whatever. It seems like a really fun game with a really, really cool board. Number 7, Dice Brewing. This is a dice building game for 2 to 4 players. That's like Quarriors or Marvel Dice Masters and things of that nature, where you are getting new dice and putting them into your pool to draw from. And I'm a big fan of mitigating luck in dice games. Stefan Feld does this a lot. And it seems like there's a lot of different cards that like let you change your number or like move dice around and things of that nature. So I really, really like that general kind of sub-mechanic in games. So that's the main reason that I'm looking forward to Dice Brewing. Number 6 is Colors of Kasane. This is a hand management and set collection game for 3 to 4 players. It has you arrange cards and you're trying to assemble the most beautiful kimono. It is absolutely stunning on the table. The different cards have like different textile textures and things like that. It's really cool looking. It seems to have a couple of similarities with Bonanza, where you aren't allowed to rearrange the cards in your hand. It's just kind of what you do with them, playing them in order. And I really like that about Bonanza, so I'm interested to see another game take that mechanic and see what they do with it. Number 5 is The Castles of Mad King Ludwig. This is a tile placement game for 1 to 4 players. It's designed by Ted Alspach, who designed Suburbia, which was a big hit a year or 2 ago. I like that game a lot, another tile placement game. This game actually adds in an auction mechanic to the whole thing, where one player gets to kind of set the starting price of all the tiles, but then that player is the last one to pick them. So it's kind of, there's a lot of like game theory stuff going on there that's pretty cool. And the tiles are all different shapes. So when you're trying to build your castle, there'll be like a big circle room or like a long hallway. So then you wind up with these really weird looking castles. It's not all just hexes that fit together. So it looks really cool, and I really like that aspect of it. Number 4 is Deus. It's a hand management game for 2 to 4 players. It's designed by Sébastien Dujardin, who designed Trois and Tournai. He actually was co-designer of those with 2 other guys. Both of those games were very, very interesting, and they used mechanics that I had seen a lot, but they both feel totally different than every other game in their genres. So I was very intrigued with those games, so that's the main reason that I'm interested to see what he does next. This has a very, very nice board. Instead of just hexes, it's like circle teardrops, and it has the same effect, and I think it's entirely just aesthetic, but it looks really cool, and that's great. Number 3 is Fields of Arle. This is a 1 to 2 player worker placement game by Uwe Rosenberg. This is a very deep 2-player strategy game, and it really sounds a lot like he's just kind of recycling the same worker placement mechanics he's done before, that he keeps kind of rearranging them in slightly different ways. It's interesting that this is a 2-player game, and it seems deeper than any of his other 2-player games that he's produced. But it's Uwe Rosenberg, and that guy really knows how to design a game. I really, really like what he does with the worker placement mechanic, so I'm very excited about this one. Number 2 is Mythotopia. This is an area control deck building game for 2 to 4 players. It's designed by Martin Wallace, and he designed A Few Acres of Snow, which I really, really liked. I thought it was very, very interesting. I thought it was using deck building in an interesting way. It might be my favorite kind of deck building to play a board game where there's like a board and you use your deck building to kind of dictate what actions you're going to be taking. But it was only for 2 players, and it was kind of broken. There was a dominant strategy that almost always won if you followed it, which kind of sucked, and it kind of famously is broken in that way. So I assume that Mythotopia is going to not have that. It's not going to be broken, and I like that it's for more players, and it's implementing a similar kind of deck building board game mechanic that I really, really liked, and I really thought was interesting in A Few Acres of Snow, so I'm very excited about this one. And my number 1 game for Essen 2014 is Isla Isla by Stefan Feld. He is probably my favorite designer. I absolutely love what he does. This is a hand management set collection game that is a little bit different than some of the stuff he's been doing. It seems like it's a simpler game to kind of grasp, but it still has a lot of the deep strategy that you're gonna find in Stefan Feld's games. It's for 2 to 4 players. It has a really lovely modular board, and it fits together in an interesting way that's not just kind of hexes placed together. And basically, the actions are dictated by you have certain cards, and the cards have 3 different things on them, but you only get to pick one of the 3 things to use each of the 3 phases. So, for example, you can only use gather the resource on one card in the second phase or whatever. So if you want, it's got a lot of kind of meaty decisions in there in a very simple thing, because maybe you want to use the A thing in one card, but then that also has the C thing you want to use, but then you have to figure all that kind of stuff out. It seems very interesting. It seems simple enough to teach new players, but deep enough that it's going to have that Feld crunchy feel. So I'm very excited about that one. All right, thanks for tuning in. That was my top 10 games for Essen Spiel 2014. Sadly, we can't go because it's in Germany and we can't afford that. But I hope that if you are going, you have a great time, and I hope this list helped you kind of pick some things that maybe you'd be interested in. And if you're not going, I'm going to keep you updated in the news segments with kind of what was hot and things of that nature. So thanks for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and I will see you next week.